Okay, so again, somatosensation is sensation from the body. And again, Aristotle, famously identified the five senses and encapsulated, somatosensation with touch. And as I've been trying to emphasize, somatosensation, the sensations that you can actually detect and ultimately perceive from the body are so much more than touch. However, touch is a big component. So tactile aspects, right? Like different forms of touch, like sort of light touch, right? Which is dependent upon, detection by those Meissner's corpuscles. Deeper touch, sort of like a poke, right? Which is dependent upon detection from more deeply situated Pacinian corpuscles, which are lower in the dermal layer, right? Both of those, remember, are what we call fast adaptive receptors, which means they fire initially upon, deformation of the corpuscle, like on the initial contact, but then quickly drop off in terms of the frequency of action potentials. Other types of mechanoreceptors, sort of tactile receptors, for example, the Merkel's discs, right, which are very important for detection of texture, and also the Ruffini's corpuscles, which are, Ruffini's receptors, which are very important for sort of grip or stretch. Both of these are what we call slow adaptive. They fire and continue to fire as long as the stimulus is actually present. But all these mechanoreceptors, right, along with the proprioceptors, and proprioceptors, again, are giving you positional information, right? They're the sort of Golgi tendon organs. They're found in the tendons and extend into the muscles at the joint. So they give you a sense of, where the joint is positioned. And also the muscle spindle fibers, which are, within the muscle themselves, the muscles themselves, which allow for, an appreciation for the contraction or the extension, of various muscles. All of this information is positional, right? It is, tactile. It is telling you what you're touching, where your body is situated. This particular information is going to be, coming through those what are effectively, functionally dendrites, past the dorsal roots of the spinal nerve, or through the dorsal roots of the spinal nerve, where their cell bodies are located in the ganglia, what are called the dorsal root ganglia. Remember, we got 31 pair of, spinal nerves, and so 31 pair of dorsal root ganglia, which are coming in the back. And then effectively, the second of their pseudo-unipoles, right? They're the pole of the pseudo-unipolar neurons that are carrying all this sensory information in, that is extending from the ganglion, in through the dorsal root into the central nervous system. That's, functionally the axon. That is going to go basically enter and then ascend, go straight up the back of the spinal cord. So you should get an impression here that these mechanoreceptors, these proprioceptors, can be exceptionally long, right? Because they can start in your toe for tactile detection in the toe, for proprioceptive information about how extended your big toe is, and they are going to have a wire that goes all the way up in through the dorsal root ganglion, and then all the way up the back of the cord, forming these great big columns of white matter, of cabling, going up the back, getting ever thicker, right, as more, inputs are coming in as you ascend through the body, right, in the segmented, organization of your somatosensory system. And these form what are called the dorsal column system. So the dorsal column system is carrying mechanoreceptive information, tactile information, kinesthetic information, proprioceptive information from all these specialized cells that we've been describing, right? And they're going to ascend all the way up and make a synapse in nuclei in the brain stem. Now, this dorsal column system continues to ascend, obviously, so you can, reach areas of the brain that are involved in your perceptual, experience, basically, of, the tactile and kinesthetic and proprioceptive aspects of your body. And so these cables from these brainstem nuclei, where the dorsal column, cells have synapsed, And those dorsal column cells, again, they literally have their cell bodies in the dorsal root ganglia, and they're dendrites out here in the body. They're very long cells. They made it all the way up to your brain stem, right after you just touch right here. And then there's going to be the next set of cells, that they synapse with. Their axons are going to decussate, to cross right to the other side of the brain, and ascend, of course, to the thalamus. So there'll be a thalamic nucleus, as there is, with every form of sensory input that we've been describing, except for olfaction, right, which is direct, privileged access to the central nervous system or to the brain. So the dorsal, column system, it reaches the brainstem. The next set of cells decussate. They send their axons up to the thalamus, and then from the thalamus, the primary arrival mapping site, right, is going to be right up here in what's called the let's see if I can get it here, the post-central gyrus. This is the post-central gyrus right here of the parietal lobe. This is called primary somatosensory cortex, and there is a mapping of the other side of the body, because there's been decussation, there's been crossing, a mapping of the other side of the body here, but it's an odd mapping. Remember, it's a homuncular mapping with exaggerated, regions representing the hands, for example, and the face, as opposed to the rest of the body, because that, correlates with the density of the various receptors that have given rise to this dorsal column system. So what I'd like you to remember is that the dorsal column system, carries mechanoreceptive, proprioceptive, tactile, kinesthetic information from the body. It gets it up there, quite quickly up the dorsal columns, right, at the back of the spinal cord, synapsing in the brainstem. There is decussation over to the thalamic nuclei that process this incoming, tactile and proprioceptive information, and then from that thalamic nucleus, there is a distribution to mapping in the post-central gyrus, the primary somatosensory cortex of the parietal lobe.